Hello campus. So sorry we got cut off there. So let's continue. I said we should set like the height of the stuff to 100%, so we can like have the effect that we want. You see, it went to the bottom just as planned, and then we change the align item to flex start and justify content to flex end. Let's see how what effect that will have. That's cool. So next we change the align items to centered, and then we have this. And next we change the justify content to center, and then we have this. Okay. Okay. So we change the flex direction to column so that those guys can be like vertical. And then we have this. And let's get rid of the align items and the justify content for now, and include like flex start align item. Get rid of some of these children so we can see it better. Alright then. That's cool. And then let's change it to center. The align items to center. You have this. I hope you guys like understand how these align items and justify content like compensate each other. And yes, we are caught up. So I hope you understand that. You can use that to center anything, even a text. So you're writing a text, you can use it to center a text, just as I explained earlier. So let's go back to our material. Yes. Okay. So I've explained this, I've explained all this, I've explained centering, and finally there are other display types than flex. Different tags have different default display type, but a container with no display will not be visible. So CSS invisible, we want to set something to be invisible, we just set the display to none. So let's go back to our code. Let's make this the first big blue stuff invisible. So I think this is the guy here. Or let's even make all the blue stuffs invisible. So we just come to them and we set their display to what? None. So they are invisible now. Alright, then let's continue. So position is the next thing we'll be treating now. Position is an awesome part of CSS. However, it is very sensitive. So I want you to pay utmost attention, because position can be quite confusing if you mix it up. But we've got this. Elements, meaning tags, can be moved around, maybe freely or not, to different corners of the screen using the following property: the top, the bottom, the right, and the left. We can use that to move our elements around. Let me go ahead and create a new example for this. Let's call it example 9.html. And let's see, paste the former code that was there, and let's leave these guys. We can remove this flex and this height, flex direction. You know what? Let's just not style the container. Oh, sorry about that. And then let's just include everything again. And let's make our U guy visible. And let's come back here and duplicate it. Let's copy the part and let's paste it here. You can see what we have here. We have like a lineup of this stuff. Alright, let's continue, please. Alright, now I'm going to teach you different types of display. Now there are 5 different types of position. There are 5 position values. The first one is static. This is the default values for all elements. The positioning is not affected by top, bottom, left, right properties. Frankly, there's nothing special about this static position. It's just the normal position. The next one is relative. I love this one. A tag with relative position will be positioned relative to its normal position. What I mean is that, look at this tag, this blue tag. Its normal position is here. I'm talking about the blue in the middle. Its normal position is where it currently is, and it will follow that position wherever you're going. Look at this first blue, for example. His normal position is here and to follow that position. But with relative styling, we can position it relative to that normal position. Let's enough talking. Let's go ahead and use it. So I want to style this hue guy separately. How do I do that? I've used class, I've used ID. So let me just style it inline. So let's come back here and give it a style inline. So let's enter style, then enter position and make it what? Relative. So we have made it position relative, and that won't really do much for us. Let's make the color brown. You know what? Let's style him separately, right? Let's give him an ID of G. But because we still wanted to use this property, let's share it with this guy, and then let's bring it down and style him separately. Good. Let's give him a background color of brown so it will stand out. Excellent. So now let's, after we've done that, let's give him a position of relative. Now it doesn't really do anything because you have not used the other important properties. After you set the position, then you use these properties to like change where that position is. So his relative position is to where he currently is. So let's go ahead and use that to our advantage. So let's give it a margin to the top. This is different from normal margin. Top, let's give him like 20 pixels. You can see it moved 20 pixels, but when it moved, it didn't affect the rest of the siblings. To the rest of the containers, they imagine he's still there. They don't know he has moved, but they will never know he has moved. He's moving, but he's not moving relative to these guys, these other guys. He's moving relative to his position. So let's give it a margin to the left. Let's give it like 100 pixels to the left. You see, it's moving, it has moved out, but he is still there. To the containers, he is still there. To these guys, it's almost as if he's still there. So they didn't really move to compensate, to fill the space he has left. But in the meantime, he has moved and given himself some kind of a margin. Right, I think you understand what relative position is now. The next one we'll be talking about is absolute position. This is my favorite position. Elements with position absolute are positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. Yeah, let me break that down to you. You see, relative position is positioned relative to the normal position of the container, but absolute position is positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. What I mean by ancestor, I mean the parent. So who are we styling? This guy. Who is his parent? Cn. Now, is Cn positioned? If Cn is positioned, then G will be positioned relative to Cn. Let's go and check Cn style. Is it positioned? No, we don't even have any style to him. So he's not actually positioned. Now, we didn't set any kind of positioning to him. So we didn't set any kind of positioning to him. Let me give you something. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's copy everything here and put it inside a div. So G has the parent of this and the parent of this. Is this guy positioned? No. Is this guy positioned? No. But because nobody is positioned, let's go back to the document. If there are none, if there are no position ancestor, then it will be positioned relative to body. However, his siblings will know that he's gone. Unlike relative position where the siblings won't know that he's gone, his siblings will know that he's gone. They will treat it as if it does not exist again. Imagine stacking 10 bricks on top of each other and you pulled out the third brick. What happens? The bricks will move to fill the empty space. So let's go back to our guy. Look at where he is. Let's get rid of this top and bottom stuff and even the position stuff. So it has no position. It stays where it's supposed to stay. But then when we make it position absolute, the first thing that happens is that they treat him as if he's no longer there. So he has come out of them now, but he's still staying in his normal position. So we can give it a margin to the top. But you might be wondering that who is he referencing to now? Because the other guy referenced to where he was formerly. But who is he using as his reference? Now, because his first parent is this div. His parent is not having any position. His next parent is cn, who is not having any position. So that way, it's going to be relative to the body tag. It's going to be relative to the body tag that way. So we are going to come to the, let's set the top to 0. Let's set it to 10 pixels and go back to the code. You can see it's relative to the body. Let's set the right to 10 pixels and go back to our code. You can see it's relative to the body. This is the body tag, the entire stuff. So it's setting itself relative to the body. I wonder what happens when we change this top to bottom. To take it to the bottom, right? It took it to the bottom and just put it there. So that is absolute position. But assuming we wanted this guy, this other guy, this div to capture him instead, we give it a style. Let's give it a background color of beige. Alright then. This is him here. So assuming we wanted this guy to be the reference point for our absolute position, we need to give this guy a position too. So let's give him a position of relative. Right, we're giving the container position. So this guy, when he has his absolute position, is going to ask himself, does my parent have a position? And it does. So it's not going to be relative to his parent. So bottom of his parent. So it's relatively positioned to his parent, although his position is absolute. Please don't let it confuse you. Alright then, let's move on. Make sure you go through the documents, by the way. The next one we'll be talking about is fixed position. Fixed position is like we're telling him to guide. You must have seen a floating chat with us button on website. You used to see it normally in the bottom right corner, some kind of a chat button. And even if you scroll the page, that button will move. Contrary to absolute position, fixed position is relative to the viewport. It's not relative to the body, it's not relative to its parent, it's relative to the screen itself. So that scrolling won't scroll it. So even if you scroll it, it won't affect it. It will remain there. It will remain there permanently. But similar to absolute, its siblings will treat it as if it doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and remove every styling that is on top of our guy. So it's back where it's supposed to be. Now let's go and set its position to be fixed. You can see he's staying where he is. He's fixed there. Even if I scroll the page, it doesn't move. And I can also set the top and right. Let's set it to right 10 pixels. So it's here now. You can see from the right, 10 pixels from the right. You can see this now. It's staying there permanently. So we can use that to create some kind of a chat with us button. Alright then, the last one I want to talk about is sticky. Just as it sounds, it sticks to the screen when you scroll to where it is. Have you noticed some containers on a website that will join you as you scroll and continue with you from that place? It's almost as if you pick it up. One could imagine that they are sticky. A sticky element changes between relative and fixed position depending on the scroll level. It stays relative until you scroll to a given offset position and then sticks in place. That is changed to a fixed position. Note, Internet Explorer does not support this sticky position. So let me describe sticky position to you. Let's get rid of everything with this and go back to our code. You can see it's where it's supposed to be and it's scrolling normally. But sticky position, you know what? Let's make this guy. Let's create a lot more of these guys. So let's make this fourth guy our sticky positioned. Let's take away this G from this guy. Let's make it another one again. Let's call it M or let's call it ST to indicate sticky. So #ST. Let's start that. Because we want it to have the same styling, we'll come back here and join it to this group of styles. Then let's set the background color to be something a little bit different from every other person. Let's set it to be chocolate. So let's go and view it. There it is. So I want that when I get to this chocolate, once it gets to the top, it should just stay there. You shouldn't scroll and enter the top. So to do that, I'll set its position to be sticky. Now we have this. This position is now sticky. Sorry. Now when you set position to be sticky, it won't work directly until you include one of those top, bottom, right, left. So if I want it to stick to the top, I'll just put top 0 or maybe top 10 pixels if I want it to be 10 pixels away from the top. So I have that. So when I scroll, you can see it stays in the top. It didn't scroll with the rest of them, so it joins back when it enters and then it stops when it stops. So let's change it to bottom actually. So when I change it to bottom, it's a little bit different. You can see when I scroll to the top, the bottom picks it up. So either the top can pick it up or bottom. So what if I add both of them to it? So I want both top and bottom should be able to pick it up. Bottom picks it up, top picks it up. So that's a sticky positioning. It's kind of cool. Yeah. Alright then. The next thing we'll be going to is box shadow. Adding shadow to your container can be awesome if you do it right. The syntax is box shadow, the horizontal length of a shadow, the vertical length of a shadow, and the color of a shadow. Let me go ahead and create this and pretend with HTML. So let's add the boilerplate. So there's nothing on our page at the moment. Alright, so let's go ahead and include something on our page. Let's create a container called GG. Let's come and style GG. Let's give it a margin that is worthy of its stuff. Let's give it a 50 pixels margin. Let's make a background color. Let's make it blue. Let's give it a width of maybe 300 pixels, and let's give it a height of maybe 100 pixels. Should be visible now. So we want to give this guy a shadow. Oh, you know what? I don't want it to be where it is right now. I want it to be at the center of the screen. Remember, I taught you how to center things. Remember, so to center something, make the container to be full screen. So let's make body to be full screen. To do that, we need to give it a width of 100 pW, and we need to give it a height of 100 pH. By default, it has a margin, so let's get rid of that margin, make it 0. Alright, so we want to center it. That means we should make our body what? A flex box, a flex. So let's make it flex. So to center it, we simply set the align item center and justify content center. And we have centered our box. That's pretty cool. Let's get rid of the margin. We don't need the margin. Alright, I want to add shadow. To add shadow, you just type box shadow. Then you write the horizontal distance, let's say 10 pixels, and write the vertical distance. So by default, it's going to be black. Right? Look at this, horizontal and vertical. What happens when I change the vertical distance to 5? You can see that vertical reduces. You can also change it to a negative value. What happens when we change the horizontal distance to -10? To go to the other side. Exactly. So let's keep it at 10, 10. To change the color, I can just set the color I want. Let's say we want to use beige. Beige. You can see there's a beige color. They don't know if you can see it. Let's make it green so you can see it better. Exactly. So you kind of create some kind of an awesome effect for shadow. But that's not all. You need to beautify your shadow. You can use the blur effect to beautify your shadow. An ordinary shadow is not that interesting, but when you add a blur to it, oh, that is beautiful. To add a blur to your shadow, use this syntax. After you write the horizontal distance, you write the vertical distance. Include your blur radius before you include your color. So let's come back here and include our blur radius. Let's make that blur radius 7 pixels. So let's go back to our code. You can see the way it blurred it out 7 pixels, and then you can play around with that. There's also the spread effect. You have the spread effect after the spread radius after the blur radius. So let's come here and include a spread radius of 10 pixels. Exactly. If you don't use it right, it's going to mess up your code. So let's use 3 pixels. So to make this guy a little bit poetic, let's give it an RGB value. Let's make it 0. Let's make it RGBA. Sorry about that. RGBA. Let's give it 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, tab, 0. It's 2. Exactly. So you see the effect is great for us. So even if you give your box a border radius, the shadow will adapt to that border radius. Let's give it a border radius of 20 pixels. You can see that now. So you can use this to create awesome buttons, for example, just as I did at one point in the tutorial. So let's go back to our stuff. Sorry about that. Keep it going. Alright, you can also use multiple shadows on something by just setting the individual shadows. For example, let me copy this shadow property here. You separate them by comma. You can see they are separated by comma. So let's go back to our code and replace this with that. So it should give our shadows multiple shadows. You can see that. So let's go back to our code. The next thing I'm talking about is object fit. The object fit property of CSS is used to specify how an image or video should be resized to fit its container. Imagine your fictional company uses their phone to snap product picture, and then they upload that picture using the Monagree business app. You now call the Monagree API to retrieve this image, only to show it in a square container. That's going to look very bad. The picture will look really bad, not because you can't show it in a square container, but because the default property of IMG squeezes the image to the size of your IMG container. This is where object fit comes in. The available value for object fit will include this, but before that, let me demonstrate the issue to you. So let's go ahead and create example 11 for HTML. I hope we still have the boilerplate. Do we? Yeah, we do. So let's include it. Oh, we don't actually. But that's not the problem. Let's just delete these guys. Then delete these guys. Good. Now let's create an AMG tag. Let's set the source to that guy. What's guy.png? Remember this guy.png? Yeah, this guy. So let's give it a description. Alright then. So let's give it a class of img. Then we'll come here and style that img class dot img. Then we have this. Now if you go back to, if you copy the path to this guy, close orders and then copy the path, and then you go to your browser and then view that particular web page, it will show the default size of that image that you are displaying. But if you resize your image container, maybe you want to give it a constant size of maybe width should be 300 pixels and height should be 300 pixels. Before I refresh the page, is this a square? No. I want to put it inside a square image tag. What will happen? It will squeeze the image to fit in, which is not good. I mean, look at this. Imagine displaying this to a customer. It's disgusting to say the least. So to make it look better, we use the object fit property. The first property is the fill, the value of that property. You can use fill. This is the default. It resizes the picture to fill the image tag, which is what just happened, which is not really cool. The next one is contain. Let me show you contain. Let's come back here. Let's read what contain means. The picture is scaled up or down until either its width or its height touches the image container, irrespective of whether it fills the entire image tag or not. So let's come back here and set the object fit to be contained. So let's come here. You can see, if I add a background color to my image tag, you will know it's not actually fitting it. you can see it's not actually fitting our image tag. There's still space up and down, but because either the width or the height have touched our container, in this case the height is what touches our container side, you just assume that's all. So the next one we'll be talking about is cover. This is my favorite. It zooms the image until it fills the space and the aspect ratio is preserved, so it doesn't really squeeze our image together. So let's change this contain to cover. Awesome. So this is much better than that. It doesn't squeeze our image, it just zooms it up until we get the right stuff. Okay, let's continue. Now the next thing we'll be talking about is the overflow property. This property controls what happens to content that is too big to fit into an area. For example, let me create a small container that is kind of like too big. Sorry. Let's create another example and copy these guys here. Inside the body tag, let me include a div. Let's call it mm. And inside that div, let's put a lot of stories about Lorem Ipsum there. Let's put another Lorem Ipsum story there. And let's put another Lorem Ipsum story there. So normally this stuff is going to like adjust itself to contain all the Lorem Ipsum story, and rightfully so. But what happens when we squeeze this thing together? When we give mm a fixed width and a fixed height. So let's see, we give it a width of say 300 pixels, and we give it a height of say 300 pixels, and we give it a background color of say yellow. What happens? Well, look at that. It goes beyond. You recognize that that's Latin. That's cool. So it goes beyond like the container. It came out of the container. That's what I'm trying to explain here. There are different properties to the overflow property. The first one is visible. The default property. This visible property value will say that the big content should remain the way it is. It makes the screen look waggy. I mean, look at the way the screen is looking. It goes beyond the container we want it to stay inside. The next one is hidden. It tells you that the overflow, the excess should be cut off, but you won't be able to see what is cut off again. So it cuts off this part and you won't be able to see it again. Let's do it. So come here and set the overflow to hidden. You can see those parts is like lost forever. There's no way to like retrieve the part that was removed. There's no way to retrieve the part that was cut off. Alright, another property we can add is apart from the hidden is the scroll property. So we tell him that okay, please don't hide. Instead, let me be able to scroll to the remaining one. So let's come back here and write the scroll property. When we refresh, it gives us a way to like scroll and see the rest of the stuff. So I think you understand what the overflow property is now. We can also specify what direction of overflow we should deal with. There is horizontal overflow, overflow S, vertical overflow, overflow Y. They will have the same set of values. What we're talking about next is animation. We're talking about animation. Animation may be the difference between a wow and a wow logistics web app. However, don't overdo it. Don't overdo it or you lose the customer. CSS animation is basically changing an element from one style to another automatically. To create an animation, you must first specify some keyframes for the animation. So let's go ahead and create example 13 to like deal with this. So let's include our boilerplate. So we want to animate a button, right? Alright, let's create a button. I want to put the button at the center of our page. Remember, how do you put something at the center? Make the container full screen, first of all, depending on how you want to do it, but we want to make it full screen. So width, first of all, let's get rid of that extra margin that is always there. Width, please don't cram, alright? Please don't be tempted to cram. Make sure you understand the concept in depth. If you don't get what I'm explaining here, you can just check out the W3 schools, or you can ask questions on the group. Please don't hesitate to ask questions on the group. Alright then, so let's set the display to flex. Remember, flex is what helps us do most things. So let's set the align items to center, and let's set the justify content to center. Bingo, we have it at the center now. Let's style this ugly button. So let's style it with a class. Let's give it a class of btn, so we can style that btn separately. So let's give it like a padding. Let's give it a padding. Let's give it a fixed width and a fixed height. So let's give it a width of 120 pixels. And let's give it a height of let's say 35 pixels. So how do you look? Awesome. So let's give it a border radius. First of all, let's get rid of that black line that is surrounding it, that black border. How do we do that? Guide border, none. Let's give it a border radius of say 20 pixels. 20 a little. Okay, 20 is okay. Right, 20. Let's make it 25 to make it poetic. Alright, so let's give it a background color of blue. Alright then, let's give it a text color of white. All these things that I'm writing inside the HTML file, you can create a .css file and put it there. But I just don't want to go to the stress of doing that. Alright, so we are done. What do I say animation is? Animation is basically doing what? Changing an element from one style to another, but doing that automatically. To create an animation, the first thing you need is the keyframe. The keyframe is what holds the style, the elements we have at certain times. But let's go and create a keyframe. So we want to animate this guy. Let's put all our animation control / inside one particular part. Organize our code very well. So the first thing you want to write is the keyframe, and then you name the keyframe ABCD first animation. Now, when inside your keyframe, you are going to define the property, the person you are animating, the element you are animating. You are going to define the property to have at different stages of the animation. So there are different stages of the animation from 0% to 100%. You can specify whatever percent you want to manipulate at that particular time. However, you should know that instead of writing 0%, sometimes we can write from and then include the style. So let's assume we want our button to have a background color of blue from the beginning, which is what it already has. But when it ends 2, which is like writing 100%, we want it to have a background color of let's say yellow. Alright then. So after you define your keyframe, the next thing you should define, the next thing you want to do is to link your button. When we refresh, nothing happens. Link your button to that animation. To link your button to the animation, to link anybody to animation, use animation name. Then set it to the name you have just created. Copy this guy and put it here. Then go back to your code and refresh. Well, it doesn't really show anything. You know why? Because the animation is happening all of a sudden. The animation is happening all of a sudden, so nothing really happened. So to make the animation happen slowly so we can see it, you set the animation duration, which is like setting the time at which the animation will run. You will see more information about that in the document. Delay an animation. Oh, no, that's different. Set when the animation will start with animation duration. Let it take 4 seconds to animate. So let's go back to our code and refresh. And that's it. You see, it changed from blue to yellow. But you notice when it got to yellow, that white text is not actually doing it for us again. So let's change that white text too. Let's animate that white text too, from white to maybe black. So let's come here and say white, and then come back here and say black. So that way it changes with it. So we come here and we observe, and voila, we have this. Isn't that wonderful? That is pretty cool, right? Okay, so we can also animate shadow, right? We can animate shadow. Let's give it a shadow. Let's give it no shadow. So it comes up like as if it's rising up. Let's not give it any shadow at 0%, but let's give it a burst shadow of so let's say 3 pixels. No, let's get 4 pixels, and then RGBA. Let's give it a 0, 0, 0, and then 0.2. So you should rise up exactly. So you see the way it's like came up to us when we added the shadow. Now there are other things you can do too. Now, like I told you, 0 here, you can specify the percentage. At what percent? That is percentage of time. So if the animation was 4 seconds, 0% will be 0 seconds, 50% will be 2 seconds, 100% will be the 4th second. So instead of specifying to and from, we can use percentage. To naturally means 0, from means 0%, and then to means 100%. So we can also specify what happens. So when I refresh the page, the same thing happens. We can also specify what happens at 50%. So let's come here, 50%. So at 50%, we want the background color to be maybe brown. We want the color, just the background color only. So come back to your stuff and watch. Let's count. 1, 2 is brown, 3, and change back to yellow. You see that now? So you can specify the style. You can specify the style at different stage of the animation. Alright, you can also delay when an animation will start. You know, when we refresh our page, the animation started immediately, but we can add a delay for when it will start, just in case you want to create an impression. When the user gets to the page, you just bring out that legendary product inside the plate. I mean, I can't wait to see the wonderful things you guys will do with this thing you are learning. So let's come here and delay our animation. You can come here and set the animation delay property. Let's tell him to take 5 seconds before it starts. Animation delay. Let's tell it to say 5 seconds before it starts. So count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now style it. So that's the animation delay property. Okay, let's go ahead. You can also set how many times an animation should run. If you notice, our animation runs just once. You can set the animation time it runs. Just set animation iteration count. This is it, animation iteration count. We're telling it to run 3 times. So let's change this delay to 2 seconds, and then come back here and refresh. 1, 2. Then you do the first animation, and then it will do the second animation, and then it will do the third animation, and then it should probably stop there. Alright, then stop there. So let's go back to our code. A second, please. Alright then, I'm back. So let's see. Alright, you can also set the animation direction. You will notice that our animation started from blue and ended in red. Assuming we wanted it to be in the opposite direction, we can set the animation direction. There are different values you can give to animation direction. The normal one, which is the normal one. The reverse for you to play backwards. The alternate for you to play backward, forward first, then backward, then forward, then backward, depending on your iteration count. Sorry, I think I've moved something wrongly. Sorry. Alright then, you should play forward first, then backward, then forward, then backward, depending on your iteration count. and then the alternate reverse for you to play backward first then forward. So let's go back and see our guy. So let's tell him to like animation direction should be alternate. What that means is that when you get to that yellow, don't just go back to the blue. You know, it went from blue to yellow, but when it gets to yellow, it used to reset himself. But we're telling him not to reset himself. Like, he should stop at that yellow, then he should use that to go back to the blue. So let's set the animation direction to the alternate. It will take 2 seconds delay, then it will start our animation. So when you get to the yellow, it go back to the blue, like it animates itself back to the blue, and then it will animate itself back to the yellow, and it will animate itself back to the blue, and it will do that here. I think he has done it 3 times already, so that's the end. But if you want to set it to be infinite, instead of adding 3 to your iteration count, you can just write infinite there. You will be doing that forever. So I'm just going to leave the page and let it keep animating. So let's go in with the course. Alright, then you can also set the animation speed curve. There are different values to this animation timing function. There's the ease. The animation starts slow and it speeds up and finally ends slow. Linear, the animation is constant. Ease in. So let's see that. Animation timing function. So let's set it to ease in. It will be slow at the start and constant all through. So it will be very slow at the start. Look at how we start slow. Look at how it's slow to start. Then it will move. Then it will keep moving like that. It will keep moving like that. Then it will start slow again. So you can add different style to your stuff that way. Alright then. So the last thing I want to tell you about is the animation fill mode. You will notice that our animation resets after it animates. Using the animation fill mode property, we can set if it should like stay or it should like reset itself. So read this part to understand that. Alright, we have come to the end of this. And before we go, I want to teach you the over property. Alright, because it would be nice if I don't teach you the over property. The over property is like you I'm trying to like get the button that we created just now. We created a button just now. Okay, this button. Okay, this button. Okay, let's create another example for this. Example 14. So let's get rid of all this animation stuff. No animation for this. And then let's leave our button this way. So this is our button. There's no animation or anything. Now what I want to teach you is that when you put your mouse over the button, I want the button to come up, right? It should rise up to us. That's over. You can animate the property of things whenever something happens to it. There are different things that can happen to elements in your stuff. Go and learn about it. But one I'll be touching today is the over property. That when I put my mouse over that element, something should happen to that element. So come here, you notice that our button has a background color of blue. But we can also redefine our button. Write the dot between and then put the colon and then select what you want to happen to it. In this case, I want the over property. So whenever it hovers, I want it to set the background color to maybe brown. Let's set it to brown. So come back here and refresh. So when I put my mouse over it, you see it changing it to brown. As a way to like create some kind of a crazy effect, I can make it change, like have a shadow instead. I can give it like maybe 3 pixels. Let's make it 5 pixels. And let's give it a nice blur effect of 5 pixels. Let's give it a spread of 5 pixels. And let's give it an RGBA of 0.2. Let's come in, refresh, and then it rises towards us. You need to be very careful with your shadow so you don't mess up your stuff. Alright then. So we are done with that. The next thing I would like us to talk about is the mobile and the responsive design stuff. and we're not going to be talking about that yet. I'm just going to be closing this year so I can release the video for you guys to go and learn. But if I don't talk about it before the end of this week, you guys should remind me on the group. Alright guys, this has been fun. Daniel